As you mentioned, coaching changes so far in the 2023 regular season. Ian, thank you so much. And as Ian, to put a cap on what he started with, the Panthers have also relieved their GM, Scott Fitterer, of his duties after firing their head coach, Frank Reich, in the middle of their season. But let's circle back to Washington. After Ron Rivera, at 62 years old, spent the last 4 years there, he went 26-40-1, Peter.
Yeah, Ron Rivera, okay, friend of the show. It's a shame, but we knew this was coming. This is it. The interesting thing is I think this new owner, Josh Harris, is going to take an outside-the-box look at how to hire a new coach and hire a new staff. From what I'm told, he's already spoken to several sources about like different ways to go about this, which is an interesting thing from Josh Harris, who was the owner of the Philadelphia Sixers when they did the trust the process. If you remember that, the process,
Sure.
and it was trade all the picks and then trade all those stuff and then just stockpile picks for later. I don't think this is going to be your typical, all right, let's bring in offensive coordinator X, offensive coordinator B. And
really?
I think they're going to have an interesting group doing the search for them. What that means, it could be people outside of the football world. It could be people from their ownership group who are going to do their own thing. And they're going to bring in a lot of different candidates. And I still go back to Belichick. If Belichick is done with the Patriots, is that the guy who ends up there and they make a trade and say, okay, Bill, you need to get these wins, the NFC East. You can get those wins, hypothetically speaking, in a way that if you had a young quarterback, the number 2 overall pick, you can do it. And then from there, you look at the different young coordinators, and there's been rumors about all sorts of people, whether it's Ben Johnson, whether it's Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. You can go so many different options, but I don't think it's going to be your orthodox, right down the middle hiring process. Josh Harris bought this team for $6 billion this year. He's got several minority owners who all are part of this thing. I think a lot of voices are going to be involved. And I can't see this being like a retread. Like, you're not going to see Frank Reich hired as the head coach of the Washington Commanders. I think they're going to do a full search, and different people are going to be involved, and different voices are going to be involved, and that's as much as I'll say without it being public. But I know that Harris has already been on the phone with several different sources saying, how would you go about this? And what's a different way to do it? What's the most efficient way in 2023 to do it? Not your typical NFL hiring process.
Yeah, you look at Rivera's tenure there, and I think one of the more interesting things you said was you mentioned Bill Belichick. I feel like that's been rumored for the past month of him possibly going there. And the Commanders team, I think we kind of all knew this weeks ago that this is the way it was going to end for Rivera's tenure there with the Washington Commanders. It wasn't pretty. There weren't many victories amongst that. They went with Sam Howell. We were fired up for him early on in the season. And by the end, they were trying to play Jacoby Brissett towards the end of the season as he had 2 really good games coming in and relief duty. So it's tough to see. I think for the next head coach, you got to figure out, Sam Howell, is he the quarterback? Is there somebody else that you're going out there to get? I'm assuming in the draft they're going to look to get a quarterback. So a lot of things wrong in Washington, and Rivera, a well-respected coach, is gone.
Yeah, let me echo the respect for Ron Rivera, his wife Stephanie, who have always been incredible and just totally dignified, cool people. Ron, we love you. Greens and fairways, brother. Thank you very much for all you've done. You know what I'm talking about. I also think that if everything we're told in Washington is new, and it's new, and there's nothing like this had to be done, okay, so if you have a new owner, you're going to have a new coach. I imagine you're going to have a new quarterback, all new. If we're going to talk about Belichick nonstop, you're going to hear me say this a lot. If they're not looking for a retread, isn't he the ultimate retread? If you're a Commanders fan, are you like, get us Belichick? Because he's going to run the front office too, and the personnel and the coach. Not me. I go find us a LaFleur, a McDaniel, a McVay, get us a new quarterback and one of these young wunderkind offensive guys. Bill Belichick has been a great thing for the last 25 years. Not so hot the last few years. I don't think the stock is as high as we think, especially when it comes to he's going to pick this quarterback, he's going to draft. Like, it's not exactly shooting fish in a barrel for Belichick picking personnel. It's okay to say that you don't just hire Belichick because of Belichick's greatness and legacy. If I'm a Commanders fan going way back in the 80s, 70s, I'm like, get us one of these guys who's going to light it up with this new quarterback. I'm not interested in bringing Bill Belichick in his 70s here to restart our institution. What's fresh and new about that? Everything's supposed to be fresh and new and bold. Get someone offensive minded and get a quarterback and do it your own way.
Peter, one last thing that Ian said at the very end was that most likely not the final change that the Washington Commanders will make in this offseason. My mind goes to Eric Bieniemy's name next because he was brought in as a really sexy coaching candidate last offseason, has interviewed for a ton of head coaching opportunities, but he took this one under Ron Rivera, and now where's the future?
Very rare that you inherit an offensive coordinator as a new head coach, or you inherit, and if you're going an offensive coach, I would find it a unlikely that Bieniemy is going to just be grandfathered in, especially if they hire one of these young offensive coaches who's going to say, hey, I'm going to do it my way.
What about him being promoted to head coach?
Potentially. I'm sure he'll be interviewed.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Washington offense did enough this year. Now, you could say, well, they didn't have the quarterback play, but I don't know if Bieniemy did enough to say, well, hey, we're going to get rid of Ron, but we're going to keep Eric and elevate him. And we'll see. I'm sure he'll be interviewing. He'll interview like he always does with several different jobs. And at one point, Sam Howell was the NFL's leading passer about 6 weeks through the season, but then that thing went off the rails.
What's curious about what Kyle said and the Bill Belichick connection and could he go there is how this all connects back to what happens in late April, which is the draft. And now that the draft order is set with the top 5 picks and the coaching vacancies that are connected to them. So the Bears now sit with the overall pick, and Washington, because of how things went yesterday, sits above the New England Patriots. A very sexy pick when you consider what the Bears did last year.
Well, so look, Sam Howell did some nice things this year, too. I think you're taking a quarterback. Yeah. Unless you did something crazy and traded it for all the things in the world and then rode with Howell. Not this year, not this class. Don't tell us that everything's new and we're changing everything. They're going to take a quarterback, and if they should, they're sitting right there where they need to be, Jay.
No doubt about it. And as you mentioned, Belichick and that getting a new offensive mind, I kind of started to think about, you think about Ben Johnson last year, he was the hot name, and he decided to stay in Detroit. So as you look at this Washington team, it's all right, is it enticing enough to pull one of these young offensive coordinators to come want to be the head coach of your organization? So exciting times. I do think, to your point, wherever Bill does end up, I do think there possibly is going to be a general manager to help do the personnel and decide all of those things, and he'll coach the team. So a lot of questions.
I'll reiterate it. Like, new owner's a big deal. Potentially new stadium that they're going to be involved in. Like, there's new energy. So to your point, is this Belichick? Is this akin to Lombardi went back to Washington after Green Bay? Lombardi ended his career in Washington, and it was like
Gibbs came back to Washington.
Like, is that just retread city, or is it like 2.0? Belichick now is going to try to.
And he's new, and he's excited. You can sell it either way.
Well, speaking of new energy, that is the 5th team, as Ian mentioned. We got Las Vegas, Carolina, the LA Chargers, Atlanta, and now Washington with head coaching vacancies.